They called it the arsenal of democracy. In World War II, the United States didn't just send soldiers to the front lines. They sent a tidal wave of steel, rubber, and gasoline. From the beaches of Normandy to the island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific. American industry churned out machines that defied logic and overwhelmed the Axis powers. We are talking about everything from the Jeep that could go anywhere to massive tank killers that drove faster than modern sports cars. Today, we are ranking and breaking down 50 distinct U.S. military vehicles used in World War II. We have the icons you know, the strange experiments you don't, and the logistical beasts that actually won the war. And you have to stick around until the very end, because you won't believe the last one. A tank designed to literally fall from the sky. Let's roll. We have to start with the backbone of the armored divisions, the tanks. Number 1 is the M2 light tank. Before the war really kicked off, the U.S. was still figuring things out. The M2 looked like a toy. It was small, fast, and in some versions it even had 2 separate turrets for machine guns. It was obsolete almost immediately, but it taught the U.S. Army how to drive. That led directly to number 2, the M3 Stuart. This was the first American tank to see combat with the British in North Africa. It was incredibly fast for its time. The British pilots loved its reliability so much they nicknamed it the Honey. It couldn't kill a German Tiger, but it could run circles around almost anything else. But technology moves fast in war. Number 3 is the M5 Stuart. They took the M3, slapped twin Cadillac of 5.8 engines in it, and sloped the armor plates to deflect enemy shells. It was a hot rod of a tank, used for scouting and harassing enemy infantry. However, the U.S. needed bigger guns. Number 4 is the M2 medium tank. This was a training box, essentially useless in a real fight, but it was the grandfather of American medium armor. It led to number 5, the M3 Lee. You have definitely seen this one. It's the tall, awkward tank with the main gun stuck in the side of the hull instead of the turret. It was a stopgap measure. It had a high silhouette that made it an easy target, but in 1942, its 75mm gun was actually quite powerful. But the M3 Lee was just holding the line for the arrival of the legend. Number 6, the M4 Sherman, the icon, the workhorse. The U.S. built nearly 50,000 of these. Critics like to talk about its thin armor compared to German Cats, but the Sherman was reliable, easy to repair, and had a gyro-stabilized gun that allowed it to fire accurately while moving, something the Germans couldn't do. Number 7 is the M4A3E8, the Easy 8. This was the late war upgrade. It had a new suspension system that made the ride smooth as silk, wider tracks, and a high-velocity 76mm gun that could finally punch holes in heavy German armor. This is the tank you see in the movie Fury. Number 8 is the M4A3E2, known as the Jumbo. They took a Sherman and welded massive steel plates onto the front and sides. It was slow, but it was a rolling bunker. It was used to lead columns because it could bounce German shells all day long. Number 9 is the M24 Chaffee. Introduced near the end of the war to replace the Stuart, this was arguably the best light tank of the entire conflict. It was fast, low profile, and packed the same 75mm punch as a Sherman. Number 10 is the M6 heavy tank. This was a massive, failed experiment. It looked like a land battleship and weighed over 50 tons. It never saw combat because it was just too heavy to ship across the ocean efficiently, but it paved the way for something better. Number 11 is the M26 Pershing. This was the Tiger Tamer. It arrived right at the end of the war, finally giving American crews a heavy tank that could stand toe-to-toe with the King Tigers and Panthers. It had a massive 90-millimeter gun and thick armor. If this had arrived a year earlier, the war might have looked very different. But sometimes a tank wasn't enough. Sometimes you needed to hunt big game. This brings us to the tank destroyers. Number 12 is the M3 GMC. This was literally a 75-millimeter field gun bolted to the top of a half-track. It was crude and the crew had almost no protection, but it could knock out tanks in the deserts of Tunisia. Number 13 is the M6 GMC. The Army got desperate and put a 37-millimeter anti-tank gun on the back of a Dodge truck. It was fast, but if the enemy shot back, you were in big trouble. Then came the real hunters. Number 14 is the M10 Wolverine. It used a Sherman chassis but featured an open-top turret and a specialized 3-inch anti-tank gun. It did the dirty work in Italy and France, but the crews wanted speed. They got number 15, the M18 Hellcat. This is still the fastest tracked armored vehicle the U.S. has ever fielded. It could hit 50 to 60 miles per hour on a road. The doctrine was simple. Hit the enemy hard and use your speed to vanish before they can turn their turret. When German armor got even thicker, we brought out number 16, the M36 Jackson. The 90-millimeter gun on this thing was a monster. It could crack a Panther tank like an eggshell from a mile away. It was the only American vehicle that could reliably kill heavy German tanks from the front at long range. Now, tanks take ground, but artillery clears the way. Let's look at the self-propelled guns. Number 17 is the M7 Priest. It got its name because the machine gun ring looked like a preacher's pulpit. It was a 105-millimeter howitzer on a tank chassis, giving the artillery mobile firepower to keep up with the blitz. For closer support, number 18 was the M8 Scott, a snub-nosed howitzer on a light tank chassis. It was used to blast machine gun nests in urban combat. But for the big booms, you needed number 19, the M12 GMC, carrying the massive 155-millimeter long tom gun. Later, number 20, the M40 GMC, and number 21, the M43 HMC, brought even bigger destruction. These vehicles could level reinforced bunkers from counties away. We even had number 22, the T-19 HMC, a simple howitzer on a half-track for shoot-and-scoot missions. Speaking of half-tracks, they were the glue of the armored divisions. A half-track has wheels in the front for steering and tracks in the back for grip. Number 23 is the M2 half-track. It had a shorter body and was primarily used as an artillery tractor to tow guns. Number 24 is the M3 half-track. This was the standard troop carrier. It could carry a full squad of riflemen, protecting them from small arms fire while they kept pace with the tanks. We also had numbers 25 and 26, the M5 and M9 half-tracks. These were almost identical to the M2 and M3, but they were built by International Harvester mostly for our allies through the Lend-Lease program. But the coolest half-tracks were the ones designed to look up. Number 27 is the M13 MGMC. It mounted twin .50 caliber machine guns for anti-aircraft defense, but that wasn't enough lead. So they built number 28, the M16 MGMC, better known as the Meat Chopper. It had 4.50 caliber machine guns mounted together on a power turret. It was designed to shoot down planes, but when they turned those 4 guns on enemy infantry, the effect was terrifying. Number 29 is the M15 MGMC, which mixed a 37mm cannon with 2 machine guns for a 1-2 punch against dive bombers. Now let's talk about the unsung heroes. General Eisenhower said 4 things won the war, and 2 of them were vehicles. Number 30 is the Willys MB, the Jeep. It is the grandfather of the modern SUV. It did everything. It was an ambulance, a scout, a weapons carrier, and a chaplain's car. It was so light 4 soldiers could physically lift it out of the mud. Number 31 is the Ford GPW. This was Ford's version of the Jeep. Parts were interchangeable between the two, which was a logistical miracle. If you needed something slightly bigger, you took number 32, the Dodge WC-51, nicknamed the Beep, or Big Jeep. It was a 3/4-ton weapons carrier that was tough as nails. We turned that chassis into number 33, the WC-54, the standard U.S. Army ambulance you see in every war movie. There was also number 34, the Dodge WC-63, a massive 6-wheeled version for moving heavy squads and towing cannons. But logistics wins wars. You cannot fight without food and bullets. Number 35 is the GMC CCKW, the famous Deuce and a half. The U.S. built over 500,000 of these. They formed the famous Red Ball Express, a non-stop truck convoy that kept the Allied armies fed and fueled as they raced toward Germany. Number 36 is the Chevrolet G506, a 1.5-ton 4x4 used for lighter cargo. Number 37 is the Studebaker US6. The U.S. didn't use this one much, but we sent hundreds of thousands of them to the Soviet Union. The Russians loved them. They even mounted their famous Katyusha rocket launchers on the back of these American trucks. For the really heavy stuff, we had number 38, the Diamond T980, and number 39, the Mack NO. These were trucks so strong they could tow artillery pieces that weighed as much as a house. But the king of the road? Number 40, the M25 Dragon Wagon. This was an armored cab monster designed to rescue tanks from the battlefield. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie. It had a massive trailer and an armored cabin to protect the crew while they winched broken Shermans out of the mud. And let's not forget the 2-wheelers. Number 41 is the Harley-Davidson WLA. It carried couriers through the mud and wreckage where trucks couldn't fit. And number 42, the tiny Cushman Model 53. This was a motor scooter designed to be dropped by parachute to help airborne troops get around quickly after landing. The war wasn't just fought on land, it was fought in the water and the mud. Number 43 is the M3 Scout Car, nicknamed the White Scout Car. It was fast and armored, used heavily in the early war and by General Patton himself. It was replaced by number 44, the M8 Greyhound. This was a 6x6 armored car with a 37mm gun. It was incredibly fast on roads and served as the eyes of the army, racing ahead to find the enemy. The Greyhound had a brother, number 45, the M20 Armored Utility Car. It was the same vehicle, but without the turret, used by commanders to direct the chaos of battle. But in the Pacific, wheels didn't work on the coral reefs. We needed to swim. Number 46 is the LVT-1 Alligator. It was a tracked boat that could crawl up a beach. It was the only reason the Marines could take islands like Tarawa. This evolved into number 47, the LVT-4 Water Buffalo. This version had a ramp in the back, meaning it could swim to shore and drop a Jeep or a squad of Marines right onto the sand without them having to climb over the sides. We even put turrets on them, creating number 48, the LVTA-1. It was essentially a floating tank that provided fire support during the dangerous initial landings. And, of course, number 49, the DUKW, pronounced the Duck, a six-wheeled truck that looked like a boat. It could drive off a ship, swim to shore, and keep driving inland to deliver supplies. It bridged the gap between the ocean and the front line. We have covered 49 vehicles, the heavy hitters, the speed demons, and the logistics kings. But I promised you one that you wouldn't believe. Number 50, the M22 Locust. Imagine being a paratrooper. You jump out of a plane in the middle of the night, land behind enemy lines, and you have nothing but a rifle and a few grenades. You hear enemy tanks approaching. You wish more than anything that you had a tank of your own. Well, the U.S. Army actually tried to mail you one. The M22 Locust was an airborne tank. It was tiny, weighed only 7 tons, and was designed specifically to be strapped underneath a massive transport plane or shoved inside a heavy glider. The idea was to fly a tank onto the battlefield. In practice, it was a disaster. To make it light enough to fly, they had to make the armor paper thin. It couldn't stop anything bigger than a pistol round. The gun was too small to hurt German tanks. When the British used them during Operation Varsity, half of them were damaged just landing the glider. One Locust was actually knocked out by a German armored car that just rammed it. But the sheer audacity to look at a 7-ton tank and say, "Yeah, let's put wings on that thing." That is American engineering at its finest. From the mighty Sherman that liberated Europe to the flying Locust that crashed into it, these 50 vehicles built the road to victory. They are the steel and thunder of the greatest generation. So, which one would you want in your garage? The unstoppable Dragon Wagon or the speedy Hellcat? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into military history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We have plenty more heavy metal coming your way. See you in the next one.